Let's officially call the meeting to order. Eddie, Barbara, you have the flag there? Do you want to use mine? You got your flag? Okay, let's use Barbara's flag. Eddie, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Eddie.
You're welcome.
Eric, take the roll, please.
Yes, we have Chair Mark Pruner representing the Delta General Public, Vice Chair Barbara. Oh, can you hear me okay? Vice Chair Barbara Daly representing Delta Business, Kathy Bunton representing Delta Recreation, Todd Bruce also representing Delta Recreation. I think we have Chris Elias on the phone. It was just Chris. I hope I renamed you properly, representing a Delta flood entity. Mariah Looney representing a Delta organization. Gina von Klompenberg and Eddie Hard representing state agencies. Craig Watanabe and Jim Cox representing Delta Habitat and Conservation non-governmental entities. Sam Garcia representing Delta Utility and Related Infrastructure. Russ Ryan representing a Delta water exporter. And our ex officio member representing a Delta Cultural Preservation organization is Douglas Shaw. And then we also have ex officio members, Daniel Welsh from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Mario Manzo from U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, Daniel Constable, and Harriet Leigh Ross from the Delta Stewardship Council. And I know that Jess Rudnick is joining us, Dr. Jessica Rudnick. She is the Delta social scientist. We welcome her. And also a speaker later in the program, Juliana Burkhoff is joining us as well. She'll be presenting on the community benefit program item. And then Robin Kroc just joined us from the Delta Conservancy, ex officio member. Welcome, Robin. I don't know if I missed anyone. I hope I did not. If not, Mr. Chair, back to you. That's our roll call. We have, I think, 11 committee members present. I'll confirm that in just a moment.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Eric. Let's start with Douglas and then Jim to add anything for the SEC update on the proposed single tunnel project.
All right, so well, this is my report of the SEC meeting, April 28th, 2021. All right, so basically, we started off talking about the CEQA status update, and they said there wasn't much to report because they are busy preparing the EIR report, which is underway. It should be made available. The EIR report should be made available next year. We expect SEC will move much slower, while DWR is picking up the work, doing a broader reach to the public. Well, they talk about the design change of the power supply, road, and rail system at the southern forebay. And it shows that how they try to avoid all the sensitive wetland by designing roads and power lines, leaving the least footprint. And they also talk about the public outreach and community engagement plan. And they focus on the community benefit program. They had 2 sessions involving 44 respondents. And they are telling the stakeholder to register for the May 6th session. And one of our stakeholders on our side urged the stakeholders to join the community benefit program, the workshop, in the name of not throwing the baby away with the bathwater. DCA update their ongoing outreach efforts, which drew quite a bit of criticism. The stakeholder generally thought that DCA is not doing a good job, especially the stakeholders of Hood. The representative, she said, she complained that most of the residents are not informed of the tunnels. Though, I mean, it is her constituent. Okay, Agriculture's AG Solution reported the Environmental Justice Survey. Basically, they had 2,117 survey participants, 311 in the Chinese language survey came back, and 12 in the Spanish language survey came back. So they had a quite good turnout for the Chinese respondents. They make categories of DAC and SDAC, standing for disadvantaged community and severe disadvantaged community. So these two communities are very much taken into the consideration of the survey. Across the board, the most important issue the respondent came back is clean air, drinking water, natural environment, and well-maintained levees. And when the respondents are asked about what do they like about the Delta, so the 4 items came up. Number 1, beautiful rural landscape. Number 2, quality of natural environment. Number 3 and number 4, slower lifestyle and small town feel, and access to outdoor activities. Top concerns: drinking water quality, levee maintenance, and quality of natural environment. And then the respondent was asked about the special places mapping. And it came out that the combined restaurant and marina is popular. 96% of Delta DAC identify historic and cultural sites needs improvement. And the lock is stand out as stand out because it's identified by 41% as historic and cultural sites. And 90% respondents said they eat fish 4 or more times per week, which raises some eyebrows. And some people also are concerned about people having too much intake of mercury. The most frequently selected outdoor activities are always water activities. And the service needed, 55% DAC, which is the disadvantaged community, think they need social service in homelessness and food bank and food security. All right, so much for the environmental justice survey. And then the SCC is canceling meeting in May because they are saving their time and energy for the DWR work. And then the next meeting for SCC will be in June. Yep, so much for my report.
Thank you, Douglas. Jim, anything you want to add to that before I open it up for questions?
He pretty much covered it. They had another pitch for the community benefits program, but but Douglas mentioned that, and he pretty well covered the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Douglas or Jim? No hands raised. No hands raised.
I see Barbara.
Oh, Barbara, do you have a hand raised? Yes.
I've got a hand raised.
Barbara.
I just wanted to say, Douglas, that was really, really helpful. Thank you so much for that complete report, because what you reported, I see coming up in our next agenda items as being holes in our vision, because this is what the people of the Delta are saying and responding to. So I'm thinking that in our Delta Vision agenda item, and I think there was one other item, these things are going to come up as apparent. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Douglas. Thank you, Jim. Juliana, DWR's Community Benefits Program. So what, I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Well,
I'll save my questions for later.
Yeah, let me give this a little bit more of an introduction, Mr. Chair. So Juliana Burkhoff, who's a consultant to DWR, helping with the Community Benefits Program, will provide an update to the committee. The committee might recall we talked about the Community Benefits Program, I think at our meeting in January. And so we had a pretty lengthy run through of the concept behind that. What I sent out with the meeting materials for this minute included that same 3-page write-up that was presented to the committee back in January. That has not changed. The concept of a community benefits program is still the same. And Juliana will walk through both some recent activities in terms of community meetings and where that work heads in the future. So just wanted to provide a little more context for her. And I should also mention in my introductions earlier, I forgot to indicate that we have a member of the public, Lenora Clark, joining us, and welcome to her. And Mr. Chair, we do have 11 of our 15 committee members joining us for this meeting, in addition to 4 ex officio members. So
great. Thank you, Eric. And thank you, Juliana, for joining us and giving us an update. Go ahead, please proceed.
Great. Can everybody hear me? Good. So as I said, my name is Juliana Burkhoff, and although I guess you could say I have a consulting contract with DWR, I work for Ag Innovations. And as at Ag Innovations, we're a small nonprofit organization, and I am a facilitator. So my goal and my role in this project is to facilitate community input into the community benefits program. Next slide, please. So let me just tell you what I'm talking about generally. So I'll review the ideas from the community benefits interviews that we've conducted, and I'll let people know what do we know so far about the community benefits program. Next slide. So this is the concept that Eric mentioned before as the Department of Water Resources concept for a community benefits program. There, as you all noted, this concept hasn't changed since January, as a defined set of commitments made by project proponents and created in coordination with the local community to create lasting, tangible, and potentially significant economic and social benefits to the residents, businesses, and organizations facing project impacts. So that's the same concept that you saw in January, and it hasn't been changed. DWR hasn't changed that concept. Next slide. So to find out, in order to design community benefits input, we interviewed people in the Delta to ask them their ideas about the community benefits and also how to design these workshops going forward. We conducted 44 interviews in February and March, and the majority of people supported the idea of a community benefits program. However, people had lots of concerns about the community benefits idea. So people were very concerned that the Department of Water Resources would develop something that was too complex, a program that had too many forms to fill out, or had too many requirements for matching this or that, or required you to be able to manage X amount of funds, or those kind of things. So people were worried about that kind of complexity. And they also were worried that it wasn't really feasible. How were you going to get people to sign up for the program? How would you get, how would you manage, how would you choose projects? So people had a lot of concerns about the complexity and feasibility. People were quite worried about the Department of Water Resources, trusting that they would actually enforce, that they would do what they said they did. If they were going to provide funding for a community benefits program, people were worried that there actually wouldn't be a program, or that the commitments would end up trickling away. People were also concerned that there was a lack of capacity within the Delta to manage grant funds, or to manage large amounts of money, or to choose projects. So people were just, looking at the kind of organization and infrastructure that there was in the Delta, and worried whether or not the Department of Water Resources was setting a program up that couldn't be implemented. People wanted to know when projects could start, and could they last throughout construction? Could they be funded after construction? Could you have some money now and some money later? So people were worried about that. And then there were many people who said that even though they understood why the Department of Water Resources was asking for input on the program now, they were worried that it would be easier to provide input on a community benefits program if they had more CEQA or environmental information first. What were the impacts, what would be mitigated, and therefore could provide more information on the community benefits program. Next slide. People had a number of recommendations on how to develop the community benefits program, and how to provide that money, and how to avoid complexity. Some of the ideas included funding existing programs, just taking money and putting it into existing programs. And people strongly recommended that the Department of Water Resources avoid competing with existing programs. Don't make programs compete with each other for funding. People also suggested that there were a number of different project ideas and recommendations that made a lot of sense already. And you could use those existing community action plans and other Delta project plans and fund those instead of having to come up with whole new plans. Several people suggested having savings accounts for residents to use for education or job training, so that they had that money looking forward for their children or for other people for job training. Some of the suggestions were you could provide a lump sum for legacy communities to use as they wanted, in whatever way they wanted to, without having somebody define how to use it. Many people wanted to make sure that the Community Benefits Fund was driven and planned by local residents, that it wasn't something that was enforced from above or from some other non-Delta entity. And then people suggested making sure that there was broad input about what kinds of projects to fund and different types of projects to consider, that it shouldn't be just a few categories or a few ideas. So that's what we found in the community interview summary in February and March. Next slide. So from that, we've planned 3 workshops, and one of the workshops occurred April 14th. And we asked people, what do they think about the community benefits concept? What should the program's purpose and objectives be? What is their reaction to the proposed program components? And what did they think about the proposed categories of benefits? So this was a large meeting with, and it was a webinar. And so we asked poll questions in Zoom for people to provide comments and suggestions and reactions to each one of those questions. Next slide. What did we learn from the workshop? We learned that people do not like the Delta Conveyance Program. However, they are prepared to discuss the Community Benefits Program. People suggested language refinements to the proposed purpose, the objectives, and the categories. We asked people to rank what categories were most important to them for funding ideas, and people ranked natural resources, water quality, recreation, agriculture, and culture and history as most important from the 10 categories. Next slide. The funding categories that have been revised from that input are now water and air quality, public safety and emergency response, recreation, habitat conservation, culture and history, economy, infrastructure, education and workforce development, agriculture, and levee maintenance. Next slide. So next steps going forward, there's a workshop on May 6th from 6 to 8, and that will focus on funding ideas. So what kinds of things do people think should be funded? There's an hour for breakout discussions in that meeting. There'll be a tribal member workshop on May 17th. There's the final workshop is on May 25th, and it will focus on the implementation commitments and public participation process, getting input from the public on that. Finally, all of this will be wrapped up and written as a appendix that will be included in the environmental impact review, which is expected to come out to the public in mid-2022. That's it. So I'm happy to answer any questions from anyone about the next steps, the categories, or how people are participating in the process for the community benefits program.
Thank you, Juliana. Could I ask for a minute if you could go back, I think 1 slide or 2 slides where you list the categories that DWR intends to use to organize. There we go. Oops, next. There we go, that's it. Whoop, back.
Those are the categories as the categories were changed again on April 14th and may again be changed on May 6th. This is what we've heard so far as the kind of categories that people want funding to go into.
Are you saying that the list in front of us is not the current list?
It's the current list, but it could be changed.
You said, I thought you said the list. Oh, sure, it could be changed, but as of today, it's the current list. Okay, thank you very much.
We'll ask people again on Thursday, and then at the end of the month, and in the tribal meeting as well, people could change, either add or subtract categories, or at one point it was natural resources and people said that didn't mean anything, so they changed it to water and air quality. We also had a category, what did we call it? Land purchase and easements, and people said just call that habitat conservation. We didn't have an infrastructure category. So as people change, as we get input, we just change the categories to match what people are telling, providing input on.
Understand. And I have some questions, but let me open it up. Does Russ, you have a question?
Yes, Mark, thank you. Hey, Juliana, I've got a question in regards to governance. I know you may have had set up structured terms of questions, but what was the context of the governance, and what was your general feeling of their input to that?
We haven't had any input on the governance of the program.
Okay.
We asked people in the interviews, what did we ask? The interviews asked people, how do you think the public should participate in developing the program? People didn't go to the questions about governance. They just said, make sure that it's locally driven and locally overseen. So we will ask more questions about governance. It's unlikely that there will be anything in the framework about governance because we're not there yet. It's you don't want to ask people things too early.
Right. Well, and also it looks like there are some indication just by some of the other responses where there's trust or not distrust, or there's trust or none. So I mean that kind of points to it, like you indicated.
Yep.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Douglas, question?
Yes. I'm reading the second item, the public safety and emergency response. I think, is it kind of in line with the levee maintenance? Because in the environmental justice survey, the levee maintenance come up very often. Yeah. So I'm just reading that may be the same thing as a public safety?
Public safety and emergency response, people have been giving ideas such as making sure that in the rural areas, people know who to call for different kinds of emergency problems, making sure that there's enough connectivity between rural areas, municipalities, and legacy communities.
So it's different then. Okay.
Yeah, it's different. Levee maintenance has been very specific about levee maintenance.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Good. Barbara, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Have there been any amounts, suggested amounts for this suggested?
No, it hasn't even been discussed. It may have been discussed somewhere else, but for the public, the input that I'm responsible for gathering, there hasn't been any discussion.
And DWR hasn't come up with any thoughts on
I can't
how
speak
much there would be in this?
I can't speak to DWR. I have no idea if they've even gone there.
Do you know, Eric?
No, I've heard no discussion of amounts.
Okay, thank you.
Julianne, I know I have a question. There were, as I recall, approximately 156 people that were participants or at least listeners in the April workshop. What is the plan so that people can feel heard at the next workshop in 2 days? Make sure that their ideas are heard. What's the process that you intend to employ?
Great, thanks. 156 people, or 128, I can't remember, registered for the Eventbrite, but only 60 people showed up. And
okay.
And of those 60 people who showed up, about 20 of them we calculated were DWR, participating public water agencies, consultants, or other federal agencies, et cetera. So disappointing that only 40 people participated, but they participated well. So in this next meeting, at the moment, I think we have 158 people registered on the Eventbrite. I have no idea what that translates to into participation on Thursday night. We're going to send more reminders so that, you sign up for something a week ago and then Thursday comes around and there's dinner and there's kids and there's softball. And so we're going to send more reminders, hoping that we get enough people to participate. We have 7 facilitators and 7 note takers signed up to facilitate breakout groups. So hopefully we have enough facilitators for breakout groups, and there'll be 2. They have about an hour to provide input on funding ideas during that hour. So then that part ends, and then there's about another 15 to 20 minutes of public input if people don't want to talk about the program, the funding ideas, if people just want to talk about, provide us input on other things. So,
okay. And will you be in charge of assigning which people get into which groups?
No, Zoom will do it automatically.
Okay, so it's random, is what you're saying.
Yes.
As far as you know.
Oh yeah, that's random. Okay. Zoom's algorithm. I have no idea how that happens.
Version of random. Okay. All right. Eddie.
Yes, Juliana, do you have any sense, based on these funding categories in the screen here, whether any one of these are trending in favor, one over the other, with the community members you talk to?
Yes.
Which ones are those?
We asked people on April 14th to rank their top, let's see, what did we ask them? We just asked them to rank their top 3 and their bottom 3. And that was on a Zoom poll. And so the top 3 were, oh golly, water and air quality, recreation, habitat conservation, agriculture. Oh no, I'm sorry, culture and history. So water and air quality, recreation, culture and history, habitat conservation, agriculture. So, so yes.
Very helpful.
There's a meeting summary that it should be posted by tomorrow. It's being translated into Spanish, which takes a little bit longer than I knew, basically. But we're hoping that that people will have it before they participate on Thursday, and that shows the ranking that people had in the April 14th meeting.
Thank you very much.
Barbara?
Thank you, Mark. Yes, it's really funny because of Eddie's question, and the ones that you listed, Juliana, were the three that I had just written down on my piece of paper. And this is a comment that this seems more, it's not really a benevolent fund. It's more to me a defensive fund, because it, what I wrote down on my piece of paper was, well, this project is going to destroy the history and culture. It could destroy the recreation. It's going to destroy the air and water quality, at least for 10 years, and possibly forever if the saltwater encroaches up north. So it's really more of a defensive tactic than it is a benevolent, we're going to do all of this for you, because it's being done because it's all going to be destroyed. Why pay? It won't even be able to be saved. It sounds like a nice thing, but the destruction of it is going to be irreversible. So I just wanted to make that comment. This isn't some wonderful thing that they're doing for us because they like us. They just want the water. So that's my comment on that. And I don't know if Mark—
Juliana, that was more of a statement, I know, but.
Yes.
Pardon? I'm a facilitator. My responsibility here is to make sure that I design a process that can hear from all of you. And having heard from Delta residents, transparently and accurately reporting back what I've heard. I don't live in the Delta. Matter of fact, I've only lived in California 5 years. So my responsibility is to design a transparent and legitimate process and to report that accurately and transparently back to the Department of Water Resources and back to all of you so you can see what you all said.
Thank you, Juliana. And really my comment was more about DWR than about your facilitation of the process. So thank you.
Juliana, can I make just a suggestion to your presentation that I didn't see, and I apologize if I missed it, that the statutory mandate in the 2009 set of statutes that drives a lot of what's happening today refers to, in Water Code Section 85054 and 85301, which are mentioned in the handout, that that in addition, as part of the twin goals, it's essential that the project protect the Delta. And I'm summarizing. The words have to do with preserve, protect, enhance the unique cultural, historical, recreational, agricultural, economic values of the Delta as an evolving place. And so for us, that foundational piece of legislation, those words repeated several places in the statutory framework, for us provide a basis going forward. So my request is that in future presentations that touchstone or that foundation be at least mentioned. And my request is that it be at least given the placement that I think the legislature intended those words to have in not only what you're facilitating here, but in the larger picture. Second, the legislature also identified the legacy towns as being called out for special treatment. There are eight of those, I believe, that are specifically named in the statute. And I didn't see anything in your presentation that referred to those legacy towns. again, another foundational cornerstone of the legislative framework that the benefit program, I think, should be founded on. At least that's what the legislature, as I read the statute, has indicated. So it would help you, I think, as a facilitator to communicate better with the in-Delta or the Delta residents and interests to highlight those two precepts, those two concepts in the same manner that the legislature has highlighted them.
So, Mark, during our meetings, Carrie often has 10 minutes to 15 minutes to present what the Delta Conveyance Project is and how the Community Benefits Program will fit into the Delta Conveyance Project if permitted. And then Jen Barbieri, who's the communication specialist, talks in her presentation about what the Community Benefits Fund is, where the concept comes from, proposed purpose, objectives, etc. That's their role. My role is then to turn to the Delta residents and say, what do you think about that concept? What do you think about those purpose? What do you think about the objectives? What do you think about those categories, those components? And my role is to facilitate that input coming from them, organize it, and make sure that DWR hears it and that community residents see that. So I would never include any content in my presentations because that's not my content. That's your content, that's DWR's content. My role here and in all meetings is to solicit input and make sure that I've captured it accurately and inclusively. So that's why you don't see anything in my slides about anything about the program. I just had the concept paper just so you knew just the concept that you knew from DWR, and then what I've heard from interviews and what I've heard in meetings. Does that make sense?
Certainly, I understand your concepts, of course, and I'm just offering you a little input to better communicate with folks in the Delta. And just is, you know, language is important, vocabulary is critical, and just you know, just a suggestion how you can communicate better with folks in the Delta, the touchstone concepts that we are comfortable dealing with, that we feel the legislature has also endorsed. Just, I totally understand what you're saying, of course. I just suggest and perhaps how you might communicate a little bit more effectively with folks in the Delta, just for you to think about. And
I can certainly make sure that that language is in the information that Janet presents when she talks about the program.
And she does. And I was at the, you know, the she did, and Janet, you know, did. But in this people, as you are probably trying to figure out, we're not quite sure where you fit in the process. I mean, we heard your words, of course, we get that intellectually, but you know, we've been at this a long time. So just a suggestion how to kind of break down barriers and improve communication. That was all I was intending to say. Yeah. Thanks. I know Barbara has a hand up, and then I'm sorry, Russ, I think has his hand up first, and then I'll come to you, and then Barbara, you had perhaps what the paper that I sent around earlier. I think you wanted to talk about a little bit more, and I know we're getting kind of short on time, but I don't want to cut anybody off on this really important topic. Russ, and then Barbara, and
thanks, Mark. This will be real quick. Juliana, I was curious in your comment and reflecting on those that had showed up to the workshops. What are you guys doing to improve participation of the local residents that gives them plenty of notification to, or maybe they were part of the missing 60, 70 people, but I'm just kind of curious, what are you guys doing different now to reach out for the future workshops? Thanks
for that question. And if you all have any ideas, please let us know, because we want to make sure that people know who live in the Delta that, so we did two things. One, we sent postcards to people who are within I don't know, X number of miles of the facilities. So hopefully that's just another way to get a hold of people. So we did send postcards. We also used social media to get information to parents in the schools. There's several different ways that the schools send out information to parents. So we put a flyer in those so we can get to parents, and parents gets to kids, kids to get to parents. So that we hope did that. We also made some phone calls to people who know some constituencies, and hopefully that will help. And I'm happy for you to tell me other things that I should do for the next one, or other things that I can do to increase participation. Of course, if we increase participation too much, I have to find another 3 or 4 facilitators, but that would be a better problem than not having enough.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh, the other thing, Russ, too, that we're doing is people told us that when they got the Zoom information, it didn't say Eventbrite. And so they had signed up via Eventbrite, and then they got this Zoom thing, and people didn't connect the two. So this new mailing that will come tomorrow, I believe, will say Eventbrite and then the title, so that people don't misconstrue what they are. And we're also sending out 2 more reminders than we did last time. So hopefully that helps.
And I think Juliana, I know my suggestion, I forget if it was to you or to Janet or both, but in the Delta, most folks go to the local post office virtually every day, or at least once or twice a week. So that's a very effective way to communicate with folks. And I know in Clarksburg, you put a flyer on the table. That's been very helpful. I also know, at least for me, that the website address that you used initially to sign up, that link didn't work for me. I typed it in exactly as you had it in the flyer, and it went nowhere. But then I think you or somebody emailed me the correct link. So if other people tried what I did and they couldn't follow the link that you had printed on the brochure, then of course that would be a problem for them as well. I
think we've corrected that, and we posted that flyer in all the mailing in all the post offices in the Delta. So hopefully that, okay, very good. And I think we did fix that problem with the link.
Okay, very good. And Barbara, and then I see Jim had his hand up. So Barbara?
Actually, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Can I ask a clarify? I don't know. I wonder if we could maybe get everything with Juliana done before we transition into the second part of this, which is what the committee might want to say and recommend to the commission. And, okay. And before we do that, I want to just set it up a little bit. Barbara, I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off, but if you're headed in that direction,
I am.
Why don't we hold that for just a moment? And okay. Juliana, I just wanted to clarify, are you all doing write-ups that you're sharing publicly from these workshops? Like if someone was interested in this Thursday's workshop, but wouldn't be able to attend, I have a friend maybe that this applies to, is there some type of write-up that you'll do that you'll share publicly post-workshop?
There's a meeting summary there will be a meeting summary for each workshop. As I said, it's written now, it's just being translated. And there's also an audio tape and a videotape with the closed captioning and also in Spanish. So I believe the audio and the videotape are there now. So, so you could watch the whole presentation or listen to it. I think it's a YouTube link. And then also the meeting summary is there, which the meeting summary should be there tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. That was a good call. So before, Barbara, we go to any action item, Jim, I know you had your hand up. Did you have a question for Juliana or?
No, mine was more of a comment. I think I'll wait till till we go on to the next part of this.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you. Are there any other questions of Juliana? Juliana, thank you very much. Of course, you're welcome to stay and listen. But I think following Eric's, Jess, yes. Go ahead, Jess.
Hi there. I'm the Social Science Extension Specialist. I just had another follow-up question on approach that I think Russ maybe asked a bit in his question, but were there particular groups that you felt like were underrepresented in the workshops that have not gotten the more in-depth input into the process? And then secondarily, I'm curious to know how the survey results and then the workshop input will be integrated, particularly given that the survey had a much higher response, a lot more people participated in that. And so if you're seeing any differences between the voice that's coming through on the survey results and through the in-person or the virtual workshops, how those inputs will be sort of handled.
So you're speaking about the environmental justice survey?
Yes.
Yeah, which we had 2,177 or something like that responses. I'm not seeing any difference in the kind of preferences and ideas from the environmental justice survey than we are hearing at the workshops or in the interviews. Of course, we didn't ask people in the environmental justice survey what kind of funding ideas they had. It was just about their experience in the Delta and what they preferred in special places and needs, et cetera. So that doesn't really integrate. How we're going to integrate all this information is we have the environmental justice survey report. It's being reviewed right now, and I think it's going through the process so that it can be translated and put on the website with so it's accessible. So that should be soonish, I think. And then there's the interview report, which is already on the website. And then, as I said, there's a meeting summary for each one of the public input meetings. That all will be considered when the Department of Water Resources puts together its framework document. I'm not writing the framework document. They're taking each one of these pieces, and the framework will go as an appendix into the EIR.
Okay, thanks for the elaboration.
Thank you, Jess. Okay, let's, Barbara, I think we're gonna, so what we're gonna do now, just to be clear, I know that some folks are thinking of a specific recommendation to come from our advisory group to the Delta Protection Commission in connection with the Community Benefits Program. Let me clarify first of all, Eric, is the topic of what the commission may say as it weighs into this, is that intended to come up on the agenda later this month at the Delta Protection Commission meeting?
Yes, the commission meets on May 20th, and I've not yet finalized the agenda with our chair. I'll be doing that in the coming days, but I know that when this topic last came up in a commission meeting, and it was really just a glancing reference to it, there was concern about basically echoing the comments that that Michael Brodsky had made. If any of you reviewed that document that Chair Pruner sent out earlier today, broadly, that's kind of the thought that was at least coming from some members of our commission. I don't know if that's a majority view or a minority view. So my intention is to bring this up for a discussion, probably a similar update on where the community benefit program process is, and then a discussion of basically how the commission might want to engage with the efforts to develop and define that program, or not, frankly. And I think it would be helpful to have any input from this committee to help inform that discussion with the commission. So that's really the background I wanted to provide.
So Eric, would it be helpful to the commission to maybe divide this up into some chunks and maybe answer the first question then of whether we would recommend that the Delta Protection Commission weigh in or participate in the process, as opposed to assuming one position one way or the other. Would that be helpful, do you think, coming from us?
Yeah, I think it would. And if there are you know, specific approaches or you know, desires for what, you know, should inform the commission's participation in this, that's really what I'm looking for from the commission, is any direction they can provide as to how, or even whether we as staff on their behalf, you know, participate in this effort. I have been participating to date, you know, as befits a program that's very conceptual in nature. I haven't had a lot of real specific comments to provide. Carrie Buckman and Janet Barbieri and the others that are working with DWR on this effort. My approach has basically been, you know, if you're designing a community benefit program, which is intended to go above and beyond mitigation requirements, what they've outlined on a conceptual level is probably covering the range of, you know, potential benefits that a program could focus on. Of course, the rubber will really hit the road when there's a decision about how much money might go into this program, and even perhaps as the program gets further developed and refined. So I've been participating, but it's been really providing as much detail as they've been providing, which is very conceptual in nature. And I'm not being critical of DWR. I can understand why they start out at a conceptual level and they'll add more detail to it as they work toward announcing it as part of the draft environmental impact report, which is what they said they intend to do. And for everyone's reminder to everyone, that's anticipated probably around this time next year, a full year from now. That's at least the schedule that they've continued to outline for the release of the draft environmental impact report, draft environmental impact statement.
I got a question. This is Sam. I can't figure out where to raise my hand on this, but when would we need to develop and provide comments to the commission? I mean, what's the time frame we're looking at?
There's no real immediate urgency unless the commission tells me just don't participate in this, because, you know, I have been participating to date. Again, you know, I don't think I'm revealing any trade secrets with my participation, because everything's been discussed at a very high level. Yeah. This program's going to come together over the next year. I would imagine that DWR will continue to refine it over a period of months. I don't think that they'll wrap up their planning of this and finalize their draft program in the next couple of months. But then again, that's just my assumption. I don't know that for certain. And all that I've heard from DWR to date has been the work that would take them through these upcoming workshops. And then, you know, I think they're just building this program incrementally. That's my sense.
Okay. Well, I'm just interested how this body would organize themselves in a way, because it's a pretty diverse group, to get comments over in a meaningful fashion that accounts for that diversity, and making sure that each of the voices on this body are able to be heard and get the point across. And I don't know if this is like a voting thing where majority rules, or if we present all of the positions, but figuring out that structure, whatever we agree upon, I think is probably pretty important to get set before we develop comments and submit, so that everybody's voice is understood, or at least we decide on how we're going to present the voice of whatever these positions are.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Good comment. Jim, your hand's up, and then Russ.
Okay, you know, they made a presentation at the last SEC meeting, and I was going to say how a lot of the other committee members reacted. One of the comments made, and it got a big round of approval, is that the Delta is not for sale. And there's a lot of people that feel that that's exactly what this is. This is just to get people to you're dangled the carrot so that you'll accept the lousy project and you'll get something out of it yourself. I myself am very torn on this, because I feel on the one hand that should everything is an if on this, if we end up with a project. And the way I look at it is, if we end up with a project, failure to be involved in this process will just leave you with nothing and wishing that you had been involved. If there is no project, then I don't really think it makes any difference if you were involved or not. But there is definitely a lot of people that feel that this is just more DWR promises that they never intend to follow through on. And especially in the fishing community, we have had so many promises made through the years that everybody just goes, yeah, okay, why should I get involved in this? They're not going to do anything that we suggest anyway. And so the different people that I've spoken with in the fishing community, we all agree on what it is, what kind of a community benefits we'd like to see, but will it ever happen? And so I feel we need to move forward with this, but very cautiously, because we cannot give the impression that now that you've dangled the carrot, we're all for your project.
Okay, very good. I see several hands. I believe the order they were raised is Russ, then Douglas, and then Gilbert. Russ?
Yes, thanks, Mark. I certainly add to the sentiment of what Jim and Sam said. What I wanted to tap in on is what Sam said about we do have quite a diverse group here. And I see it as our responsibility to the commission to provide that. If it is a diverse message, our responsibility is to provide that to the commission so the commission can make its informed decision based on all input. And I would echo that. That was what I had viewed coming on to this body committee, was one of our duties to provide, as well as protect the interests of the Delta. I mean, I certainly understand that, because I manage 20,000 acres in the Delta. So I certainly have that appreciation to understand what that means. And then also, as part of the diverse messaging to the commission with regards to community benefits, there could be some creative fashions that could be inputted as well moving forward as suggestions. So I would want to keep an open-minded, I'm keeping an open-minded myself into those input. I would certainly say that yes, some of this may be premature, but it doesn't mean we can't get organized, at least start some discussions as those issues arise up through this community benefits program as they discuss it moving forward. That would be my initial comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Douglas.
I just have two questions, and it's meant for Juliana, but I don't think she's here to answer, so I think I just say it and put it on record. Okay, my number one question is, for them to do the statistics, do they have a target number of respondents they have? Do they have a target number? And number two, based on the 44 respondents they have, do they have a demographic profile? So, yeah.
I think Juliana's back. Julie, let's thank you, Douglas. Juliana, do you have answers to those two questions?
the question was how many people participated in the survey and the demographic.
Okay, how do you have a target number of respondents you need to achieve for the to participate in the workshop?
No, I don't have a target number. The more the merrier is usually my feeling. I want to make sure that people who want to contribute their ideas know when to contribute and how to contribute. I want to make sure we hear from a variety of perspectives, but I didn't set a target of how many. So that would be my, I mean, I didn't set a target, but I always feel like the more the merrier.
All right. And then did you work out a demographic profile for the 44 respondents?
From the interviews?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we made sure that we were talking to the different perspectives and the different ethnic groups in the Delta. Yes.
So you have the figures of like the ethnic, how many percent of each ethnic background, education level, income level, and how far do they live, how close they live to the Delta. Do you have those profiles?
No, I don't have all of those things. What I made sure is that we, for the interviews, that we made sure that we were talking to the different ethnic groups who are in the Delta, and the different groups who have identified themselves as interested in providing input on Delta issues. So the 44 interviews was not meant to be, it's really not a social science random sample or anything. It's a list of people who identified themselves as interested in providing input on the Delta. So it put my social science hat on for a second. The environmental justice survey, it was very, very important to hear from as many people as possible in the Delta. And we tracked where people came from, what their income was, where they lived, to make sure that we got a good sample size and we got a representative sample. The interviews are more key informant interviews, and that was to help me plan the workshops, to make sure that we had the right information to plan the workshops. Then the workshops, we're trying to do the best we can to get as many people to participate in the workshops, just doing good outreach. But I haven't set as a, when people register, they don't tell me anything about themselves, and I don't ask that. They just say, Susie, Bill, Bob, whoever, and I don't track that we've reached some sample or random or anything. It's just the people who want to participate have participated. Does that help?
Yeah. So I think I know it's a tall order, but maybe it will help in the future if we can take the information of the different like income, profession, blah, blah.
The workshops?
Yeah.
I'd have to ask that. And
in the future.
Golly, I'd be interested.
Juliana, can I just, so I think Douglas is just asking you to take that under submission and think about that.
Okay.
I'm getting a little worried about the time here. So I think that was Douglas's, there 3 more hands I had to get through here, but anyway, thank you, Juliana.
I want to let people know that we are vigilantly translating everything in Spanish so that those people who want, representing the diversity in California.
Okay, thank you very much. Gilbert?
Yeah, sorry to drag your meeting on, Mark, but I couldn't hold back. I think the problem is the whole process is bifurcated into all these different parts. And we can't get our arms around the whole thing because we're not allowed to. We got to review the community benefits part, but we can't merge that with the environmental justice, and we can't merge the EIR with the design of the potential preferred alternative. So there's no there. And so that's where it's hard to really get our arms around it and come up with comments. You know, Jessica asked that question about merging the environmental justice survey with the community benefits. And I think there's a lot to be said there, because that essentially is defining the Delta's place, because that surveyed people in the Delta, what do they value? And we saw some of those results at our last SEC meeting, and they're pretty impressive. I was pretty amazed by things that I feel, and I wasn't one of the ones interviewed, you know, Delta levee maintenance, agriculture, environment, water quality, all the stuff, those are the top things that these people mentioned. And certainly we could take the community benefits information that Julianne is compiling and that these workshops are going to come out with and merge them to say, hey, now that we've got these suggestions, let's look at that survey. And oh yeah, these people like levee maintenance. Maybe that should be one of the projects that rises to the top. And then this whole thing about, like I said, that everything's broken into parts. And I think the biggest issue with people is that all these little pieces are going to come together. And then we've got to trust DWR to mix everything up and pop out with whatever is the answer. And it's hard to figure out where they're going if nothing has been put together except for these little pieces. So I think that's where a lot of the confusion is. But I do appreciate your question, Mark, about the Delta's place, because I think that's critical, because I think that's the one where nobody has answers to. But that's going to be what's most important to the people of the Deltas. What is that value, and how is this project or piece of the project going to impact how we value the Delta?
Great, thank you, Gilbert. Todd, I know you had your hand up earlier. Are you okay to? Do you have a question still?
Well, I was about halfway through my chat. I just wanted to make a comment that the list of funding sources, generally, besides levee maintenance, it kind of looks like just a list of what people care about. And it could really be, if you go down that list, kind of any town USA. And those are, my opinion, kind of the pitfalls of these types of studies and workshops. And I know that Eric said that it looks, everything is in a conceptual stage right now. For instance, everybody wants clean air and water. I don't think that changes much with the demographics that you asked that question to. So, and going back to air and water, I mean, we have numerous taxpayer public agencies in the Delta dealing with air and water, very active air quality. When you start taking that to step B, you know, how do you turn a real general list of what people care about into somewhere you're going to develop a program for? So I just feel like you really see these types of studies and workshops create this and kind of depend on getting different answers based on demographics, and it's very difficult, and it doesn't really happen. So that's just my comment on the funding. I totally get that.
All right, very good. Thank you, Todd. Jim, did you have something, comment or question?
Yeah, a question for Juliana. Of the next two workshops, I'm signed up for both of them. Which one will be a chance to suggest a project?
This next one on Thursday.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so I know Barbara, you had your hand up. Let me just sort of kind of dive in here. It's 6:12, and this is, I think this is the most important item on our agenda. So I don't want to rush this at all, but I'd like to have kind of moving. I'd like to have some steps forward if we can take. And so what I want to suggest is, I think if we, instead of trying to eat the elephant at one time, that's, pardon the metaphor, but if we maybe take some smaller bites, it might be more helpful. So in that vein, what I'd like to do is ask if there's a motion to, out of our committee, whether we feel that yes or no, that at some level, we're not debating the level or the conditions, but at some level, the commission ought to be involved or provide input into the proposed community benefits program discussion. And
Mark,
I'm trying to choose.
Think we should talk about this letter before you do that.
Well, the letter assumes that the commission would be involved, and I think that there might be some folks on here that might take the position that the commission should not be involved at all in the discussion at no level.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure. I want to make sure that if somebody has that opinion, and maybe it's the majority here, if that's the majority opinion, then the letter becomes moot, right? So, and I heard that in what Eric, what he's looking for as well. So,
I see.
So
okay.
just,
that makes
right,
sense.
just break off and answer that one question first as a foundational. Because, so is there, do I have everybody on the screen? Yes. So is there a motion to that effect? And I can write out what I said, if that's helpful.
Mr. Chair, maybe before you go down that path, maybe you can do a bit of a straw poll just to see where the group lies in terms. I think that is the fundamental question, is whether to participate or not, which is basically what was in the memo that Michael Brodsky provided you. And if the majority feeling is to recommend to the commission that we should not be participating in the development, that's probably the only action that this group would need to take. If there's a participate but with certain sideboards or restrictions, then that might be a different decision. But
and I think that's what Mr. Brodsky was saying, Eric. Participate on these conditions.
Yes, yes.
Final no.
Of course, yeah. But before we reach that question, Barbara, I think that we have the preliminary question first, unless you all want to overrule me. So,
all right.
Chris, yes, Chris.
Okay. Good evening, Chairman Proner and members of the commission, of the advisory committee. So, first question I have is maybe we need to kind of step back first and then say and look at our role as one that's advisory to the commission. And so that, in my mind, that begs the question, did the commission ask us to opine or give them an advice on this very topic? That's a fundamental question in my mind. But then two then is, then if that were to be the case, is the item really properly agendized for that purpose? And what it says here is basically to review and discuss. It didn't say that we're going to make any recommendation or any form of advice that we need to then upload to the commission. Maybe I'm just kind of trying to parse roles here. I'm just trying to, because what we're doing is creating a record. And if that's the case, then we need to be sure then that we have the proper standing to play that role and properly advise the commission. I'm not trying to shrink from the responsibility. I just want to be sure that we kind of set ourselves up properly, because we can send something to the commission and then the commission comes up and says, well, who didn't tell you to do that? And then how do we respond to that? Or who told you to do this?
Good question. I'm glad you asked that, Chris. Let me just respond, and then Eric can express if there's a different understanding.
Sure.
My understanding is that both by statute and by the charter that we operate under, that was approved by the commission, that we are asked to provide both input on any matter coming before, or that we anticipate that will come before the commission. And then in a broader sense, we're asked to provide any recommendations that we have in any matter that affects the Delta. So that goes to the mandate or the request. We're conversely, we're not, our mandate is not to wait for the commission to ask us for specific recommendations and then only act in that event. As to the second question that you asked in the agenda, given the charter, given the statute, given, I guess, the history of the committee, when we have something agendized as a topic, then the door is open for us to make a recommendation and pass that along to the commission. Eric, is that your understanding as well on those two questions?
Yes.
Okay, Chris, does that answer your two questions?
Yes, I just wanted to be sure that everyone is on the same page as to what we can and cannot do. Again, yes. The idea isn't to shrink from that responsibility of advising, but to be sure that we all understand basically what what it does to the creation of record going here forward.
Yes, and your comments in the nature of like a point of order. So I totally understand that. So what I'm asking, the question in my mind, are we stating that DPC should participate in the community benefit program discussion? I think boiled down to its essential, it's the question I'd like to ask. And we could either do it with a straw poll, or we could actually do it with an actual vote, or we do a vote anyway, an action item. I feel comfortable taking action on it. That's my preference, but if nobody wants to make a motion, of course it dies right there. So
a motion to make the poll.
So, okay. Sam says we should make the poll?
Or to take the vote. Yeah, take the vote.
Okay, so Sam, is that a motion? Is that a motion that, motion to suggest or propose that DPC participate in the community benefit program discussion?
Thank you, Mark. That's exactly what I'm suggesting.
Very good. All right, is there a second?
I have a question.
Yes.
I think we need to have a second first, ma'am. I'm sorry, Barbara.
Did everyone have a chance to read it?
Chris is correct. Chris is right. It's a matter
point of order.
We should have a second first, and then we have discussion. Is there a second to Sam's motion?
I second it.
Second by Jim. Motion's in order. Yes,
Mr.
Barbara.
Chair, just for everyone's clear, can you restate the motion so we're clear on what's on the table?
The motion, as I understand that Sam made, is the committee recommends that the Delta Protection Commission participate. I'm going to add this word.
Mark, you're cutting out.
Benefit
program discussion. You're cutting out, Mark. Can't hear you.
You'll have to repeat that, Mark. You got garbled.
We have to catch every word you say, Mark.
We cut a lot of words out of that one.
That was called a redacted motion.
I'm trying to use the fastest Delta connection I have. All right. The motion is that the DPC should participate in the DWR community benefit program discussion. Sam, is that good? Sam says yes. Jim, that's good. You second that? Okay. All right, Barbara.
Is there discussion now?
Yes, ma'am. You're first up.
Thank you. I was just wondering if everybody received this. These are reasons why, from a lawyer, legal counsel, why the protection commissioners should not, or commission should not, unless under these circumstances, participate. So did you get this? Did you have a chance to read it?
Yes.
It was drafted by Michael Brodsky. The other thing I'd like to say is the number of people that have already attended these meetings compared to how many people live in the Delta is probably less than 1%. So does that show a support for the community benefits program or not? That would be my comment, and I would like some feedback if people can respond. Is that
Barbara, okay? Do we have any data to support that?
Yeah.
Support what?
What you just said, that there was more people attending that were from out of the Delta that actually live in the Delta?
Well, the Jessica or Juliana said that many of them were staff people. And what did I heard a number of 40 people at the first meeting. How how does that compare to what, 500, how many live in the Delta, Eric? 500,
over 500,000.
550,000. What percentage does that show support for the community benefits program? So that would be my comment.
Barbara, is that a speech in favor of or as opposed to the motion?
I support this document that we entertain that community benefits program on these conditions.
Okay, so I think that's the next topic that we get to is if we recommend to the commission that the commission participates at some level, condition, not condition, then we
Mark,
get to the question.
Mark,
Yes.
this is Russ. I would love to be able to, wholeheartedly say I agree with every point in that letter. However, I got that letter today, haven't had a chance to look at it. And since it is from an attorney and I am not an attorney, I would have to seek some sort of legal advice on any legal points that are contained therein. And I hate to say it that way, but it was presented that way.
Okay, I understand. So that might be a vote to abstain.
Yes.
If that might be Sam and then Jim.
All right. Yeah. So my comment on the letter is I did read it. I don't know who Michael Brodsky is. I don't know what his interest is. I'd like to come up with my own points about where the support should be or should not be, representing my interest on this committee. So if it's a vote of confidence in that letter, those who want to present it should feel free to present it, but it is not something that would represent a position that I would hold.
Okay, my understanding is that this motion is not, is it on a different subject? Is not yes or no in the letter. Jim.
Yeah, I've had a couple of conversations with that Michael Brodsky, and I would agree. I'd want to see some other legal opinions on this because this guy makes in the conversations I've had with him, he makes a lot of boasts about things that, typical lawyer in that, well, this is how I look at it. So this is the way it's got to be. And so I would definitely take a lot of that with a grain of salt.
Okay, very good. Chris, do you have a question?
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, I was just going to again get us to a point of order. The order on the floor right now is, should the commission, discuss this matter? Basically, that's what we are. So then, what other things that we're talking about here? Just kind of dressing it up, and I don't think we're ready for the food yet. Should they talk about it? And let's vote on that, and then see where it goes. If it fails, well, then there it goes. But if it passes, then it's up to the commission. Then we can then provide more input or feedback to guide that conversation. But then again, we're not there yet.
I hear you. I agree. Are there any other statements, questions, or comments on the pending motion? Hearing none, let me read the motion from my notes. And the motion is generally we recommend that Delta Protection Commission participate in the DWR Community Benefit Program discussion. All right, so you know what, Eric, we have to take this by a roll call vote, I think, don't we? Or can we just raise our hands? What do you ever feel comfortable with?
I can. We could try it with the hand raise and see. We do have a few people that don't have their video up, so they'd have to. And again, this would just be for the committee members, the voting committee members. So Lindsay, Gina, Sam, and Eddie would need to turn their video on, or I could just do a roll call. Let's try by hands and see.
Let's try. I use the thumbs up. There should be an icon that folks have with a thumbs up. So I do this in my meetings. So I'm just going to say thumbs up. That's my vote. Everybody thumbs up. So all in favor, aye. And if you want to have a roll call vote, you're not sure where the thumbs up is, then I guess speak up. You know what? We don't have a thumbs down.
Yeah, the only challenge is there's no thumbs down. So, and those thumbs disappear almost as soon as they show up on the screen. So, you want to just do a quick roll call, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, let's do that. We want to be accurate.
Okay, Kathy Bunton?
Yes.
Thanks, Kathy. Jim Cox? Jim, you're muted there.
Yes.
Thanks, Jim. Chris Elias?
Yes, sir.
Great. Russ Ryan?
Yes.
Todd Bruce?
No.
Sam Garcia?
Yes.
Vice Chair Daley?
No.
Gina von Klompenberg?
Abstain.
Lindsay Liebig?
No.
Thanks, Lindsay. Craig Watanabe? Craig, are you, you might be muted on your end. You're cleared to talk on this end.
No.
Your phone? I'm sorry, you said no, Craig?
No, correct.
Okay, Chair Pruner?
Yes.
Okay, did I miss anyone, voting members?
I think Eddie,
I'm sorry. Eddie, no.
The answer is aye.
Thanks, Eddie. Okay, I think I covered all of the voting members. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 yes, 4 no, and 1 abstain. So that's 12 voting members, and committee members, David Strecker, Gilbert Cosio, and one other member, Mariah Looney, left the meeting, so she's not voting. So those 3 committee members are not voting. So
Eric, I see Gilbert. Gilbert on screen.
I think you meant Gil LeBrie.
I think you meant Gil LeBrie.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant to say, if I said Gilbert Cosio, my apologies. I meant Gil LeBrie. Apologies. Yeah, so Gil LeBrie, David Strecker, and Mariah Looney are absent from the vote. So again, 7 yes, 4 no, and 1 abstain. And I think the entire committee knows, but Chair Pruner does report to the commission at every meeting and provides a report on the discussion and any actions taken. And I'm sure that he'll present that vote, and I'll confirm it in an email to follow.
Yes,
that's to you all, I should say, and those who were not attending tonight.
And I want to say, for those of you that voted no or abstain, I report the vote, and I don't just say the motion carries, but I report the vote unless it's unanimous, because I make sure that however people voted, that the commission knows the exact numbers. I think that's really important. Okay, so if we're all in favor by a majority vote, not unanimous, that the commission participate in the CBP program, Community Benefits Program discussion, the next question is how. And I know Barbara, at Barbara's request this afternoon, I sent around this memo, and many of you have commented on this memo already. Barbara, here, you're carrying this forward. Do you want to? Are you making a motion that we adopt this position expressed in the memo by Brodsky?
I'd like to give a little background on Brodsky for the people who don't know Mr. Brodsky.
Just real short, because we are already over 6:30.
Okay, he's been very involved in the State Water Resources Control Board hearings. He represented North Delta Cares there in part 1. He was very instrumental in the Delta Stewardship Council consistency of the Twin Tunnels with the Delta plan. Many of the objections he brought up to the Twin Tunnels were actually reasons that the Delta Stewardship Council sent the Twin Tunnels back to DWR. One of the things that came up in that Delta Stewardship Council meeting, and I was there at all of them, North Delta Cares also filed against the consistency to the Delta plan. And one of the things that came up at the very, very end was, of course, there's the information about the Delta legacy communities and protecting and enhancing the Delta. And so then DWR came up with this community benefits program, which none of us had ever heard of. And so as Mr. Brodsky states in the last page of this, that if they can get this Delta community benefits program through, even if there's only 40 or 100 people attending out of 550,000, then that they feel that they've appeased us. And I hope you'll all read this carefully, because I think it's very important what he says in it.
Okay, so if I can summarize real quick and hopefully just 2 or 3 sentences. Number one, Michael's saying, if you participate with DWR in the community benefits program discussion, just by that fact alone, you help DWR make the project a reality. So if you oppose the project, you maybe shouldn't participate in the program. Number two, he's suggesting if we do participate in the program, not we, the broader we, that you do so only with conditions, and he names the 4 conditions at the beginning. So if you're going to talk with me, my preconditions to talking are do these 4 things. That's boiled down. I think that's what his position is. So Barbara, are you making a motion, just a way of do this in order? Are you making a motion that we recommend to the commission that they adopt this memo? Wait, voice, microphone, Barbara?
Sorry. Yes, thank you for explaining it and summarizing it. And one of the points he makes as well is this is just a concept, that there's no enforceable commitments here. So
Barbara, are you making a motion?
I am making a motion. Thank you.
Okay. So Barbara's motion is that we recommend that the DPC adopt this memo as is.
Yes.
Is there a second? Motion to be in order to.
I second.
I think I see Todd trying to speak.
I second.
He seconded.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Todd. All right. Motion's in order is now on the table. Is there any discussion? So Barbara, you gave a speech in favor. Is there a speech against the motion?
My position stands as I stated before. Thank you.
So remind us, is that a no, Russ?
Yeah, because I don't have enough time to look at the legality, since it did come from an attorney.
Okay. Is there alternating speeches for and against? Is there a speech in favor? Oh, Jim, I'm sorry, Jim, you have your hand up. Thank you.
Well, I just like to make the comment that I don't think I know enough about what this guy has put in this letter to vote yes or no on this. I'd like to know a whole lot more about these issues. And just because he says it, it doesn't make it true. And so I would like to just know a whole lot more about these claims and conditions before I say, oh, that's how we have to do this.
Okay. So let me say something if I can. So procedurally, sometimes you vote no on a motion or an action, not because you're against the idea, but maybe you have questions about the timing, the content, alternatives. You like to see the idea fleshed out a little bit more. So those are reasons to vote no. I'm not suggesting that people vote no here, but I'm just, if a yes vote is let's proceed as is, unless folks want to amend this. It's kind of difficult to do that now given the time, but A no vote could be for a variety of reasons. Is there any other debate, question, comment by anybody? I think, Sam, we heard your concerns earlier. Gina, I just saw you.
I just want to understand what a yes and a no vote means. And procedurally, if I abstain to the first vote, can I vote on the second?
So the answer to your second question is you can vote. Your abstention on the first vote does not bind you on the second vote. Regarding your first question, the motion currently before us in the form presented by Barbara is this 4-page memo. I think it's 4 pages that was sent out earlier. Her motion is for us to recommend to the commission that the commission adopt the position in this paper.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
I mean, there's no amendments to it that are on that. So you can amend this document if you want. You can, somebody wants to be complicated, they can make a substitute motion. It's probably beyond the complexity of what we want to accomplish, but okay. Any other questions, comments, debate, anything anybody want to say? If not, I'm looking, nothing in the chat box. Let's proceed to a vote. Eric, could you call the roll?
Sure. Kathy Button?
To say no, based on what, like Jim said.
Okay. Todd Bruce?
Yes.
Sam Garcia?
No.
Russ Ryan? Russ?
Sorry, I was muted. No.
Thank you. Jim Cox?
No.
Chris Elias?
No, sir.
Gina Van Kloppenberg?
No.
Craig Watanabe?
No.
Vice Chair Daly?
Yes.
Chair Pruner?
No.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm Eddie Hart.
No.
I'm just looking after your best interest, Eddie, keeping you off the hot seat.
Yeah,
I apologize. My squares move around. Have I forgotten anyone of a voting member of the committee? Apologies.
Hot seats are my daily routine, so nothing's going to get me here.
So we have 2 in favor, 9 opposed. And if I miss someone and you want to get on the record, but it's pretty clear that the motion fails.
All right, 7-4. And I will be sure to indicate that the no votes weren't uniformly to signify any opposition per se to Brodsky's memo, but they were no's for a variety of reasons, because I think that accurately reflects with the discussions and the comments that I heard. Jim?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I have a suggestion. If I kind of appease the situation, is that rather than make it a, we'd say don't do this, we could just submit this as additional information to the Delta Protection Commission.
Yeah,
I mean, we already voted. We voted, and our duty is to report that back to the commission, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you know. I always try to present at least a summary of what kind of is what we're hearing from people out there. So I'll certainly reference this. I'm not going to include it as a 4-page addendum to the staff report, but I'll reference that. And just I think as the vote would indicate on the earlier motion, that there's not a unanimous opinion that we should even be engaging with this discussion. So for those of you who are supportive of what Brodsky was proposing, just rest assured I won't provide the detail. He's of course welcome to attend the meeting and to provide his public comment or to have an emissary in his place, but I'll certainly reference the fact that, you know, there's a difference of opinion out there about whether we should be participating or not. And I think it's heard loud and clear in the discussion leading up to this point.
Okay, very good. Chris, you had your hand up.
Yes, I just make it very brief. I wanted to, again, kind of echo what Eric just said, that the idea of not voting for it doesn't mean that we'll completely disagree with the sentiment or the what's expressed here. But the idea then is that, you know, what's important is for the commission to take it on and discuss. And then if they want to set some parameters around their rationale for engagement, then that's up to the commission. If they ask us to provide them with some additional rationale to kind of guide them on that area or advise them, that's okay. So, but the one thing that I personally kind of, it's like a philosophical thing for me is, you know, you don't go into any negotiations with a preset condition. I think you need to have an open door where you are sitting down with somebody and they will say, okay, let's identify what the issue first is, and then talk about what our interests are. But to say, well, I can't talk to you because until you step into a particular spot, I'm not quite sure it's a good place to start to have a good and constructive discussion.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Chris. Mm-hmm. Okay, we blew our agenda, but doing a very important, taking very important action. Eric?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I've got a suggestion to maybe keep us pretty close to a 7 p.m. Wrap up here. And that would be to focus in on the Vision 2040. That will be a item that I'll be bringing to the commission. And I don't know, hopefully you all have had a chance to review the proposed edits to the strategic objectives for the commission's strategic plan. But I'd suggest making that a priority. And the only other thing I wanted to mention in my report of staff activities is that I am meeting this week with our chair and vice chair to go over the applications for the advisory committee members. We have 2 on the meeting right now who their terms are up, and they have submitted applications to be reappointed to the committee. And then we have 5 in total. Those will come up before the commission at their meeting on May 20th. And I'll be notifying all of the applicants before the staff report drops out in the public, indicating, you know, what the recommendation from the chair and vice chair will be to the full commission for appointments to DPAC. So stay tuned for that, but it's moving forward, and you should expect to hear from me in the next week for those who did apply.
So Eric, we'll take that, or do we take that as the as item number 6 in that we just heard?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question real quick about item number 4.
That can be deferred. There's no critical timing on that. So I might just suggest that we, unless people really want to dive in tonight, that we defer that until the next time that DPAC meets.
Let's do that without objection. I'm trying to end here as close to the committed time of 7 as possible. Moving then to item 5. Eric, can you just kind of run through this, the highlights?
Yeah, so I think everyone knows that Vision 2030 is the Commission's strategic plan. It was adopted by the Commission and actually had a lot of involvement from the Delta Protection Advisory Committee back in 2015. That's when DPAC and then the Commission put their mark on it. We're 6 years into that now, and we initiated a review of our strategic plan back in 2020. What you have in front of you today is the result of discussions that we've had at this committee. What started out with as a staff effort to try to refresh the strategic objectives in the strategic plan. What's presented here in this document that I sent out to you is just the strategic objectives. Nothing else is proposed for revision in the strategic plan. But of course, the strategic objectives are really the guts of the thing and what drives us at the staff level in terms of the work that we do as the commission staff to try to cue our activities to what's most important for the commission. So I would say what is in these 8 pages of red line comments, and they're really not that substantive. Some pages barely have anything other than just some really cleanup language. But what I would say falls into one of 3 categories. One is that objectives are proposed for removal because they have been achieved. Hooray, let's congratulate ourselves for those. We'll recognize victory, but those no longer have to be in the strategic plan. Unfortunately, that's not the majority of the proposed changes, but it does apply to a few. The second category is strategic objectives that from the commission staff perspective, we feel are no longer strategic. And that could be for a variety of reasons. The comments in the margins usually indicate the rationale for that. Not always, but usually. And then the third is additions to the strategic plan. These are items that were not identified, or at least were not in our 2015 strategic objectives, but that we now believe are important enough that they should be included. So that's kind of, and then there's also some wordsmithing and editing changes that really is not substantive, but just is to improve readability of the document. So primarily what you have here in front of you are those first 3 categories. And I can go through them, Mr. Chair, but your call, we might just jump into it and see if people have specific comments on those. I can explain any of them if the margin note is insufficient.
Well, Eric, my recollection, we took a first cut at this in our our March meeting, I believe.
Yeah.
So let me try this. Let me try this, and then what I'd like to do, if you're all comfortable with this, I'd like to end with a vote, either recommending this to the commission or making changes and then recommending it if we can, or alternatively, we don't have to recommend it. I'd like to end with an action item is what I'm saying. Are there any questions or changes or comments on the red line draft that we received, that Eric just walked through? Barbara, microphone. There we go.
Thanks. One question. A couple of times in here, Eric, the sustainability of agriculture was taken out with the same comment that the staff believes we can't support the sustainability of Delta agriculture through the remaining objectives mentioned in this section. I was just wondering what that meant.
Well, the intention is that what remains in that section we think is the best way to support Delta agriculture. We attempted an agricultural sustainability plan, but farmers basically were telling us that basically get out of our way is the best way to support agriculture in the Delta. Or at least don't try to develop a plan from a public agency that create sustainability for agriculture. So that probably would be my response to it. We did attempt to create we had discussions with the Conservancy as well, and didn't get a lot of traction out there in the Delta agricultural community. It could be that there was more focus on the existential threat of the tunnel project. There could be a number of reasons for that, but it just wasn't really gaining much traction, and we weren't hearing a strong cry for it. Again, other than people saying the best way you can support us is just to, get out of our way and let us do what we do.
Thank you.
Okay, Russ?
Yes, Eric, under the water side, we're W.1, so you replace support Delta for promote statewide. I want to understand the logic in that, and because it still would be a statewide issue. And you're saying you're kind of going on the other side by saying support solutions, but there are no solutions. I mean, there's not anything that's any projects out there. So how do you preconceive some projects that aren't there yet? And then what is the thinking on changing that language? That just kind of get some history on that.
Yeah, well, our thinking was that we didn't feel that we were equipped to develop those alternatives, but if someone else developed the alternative, then we think it would be important to support it. I think it's pretty clear to me that the majority of our commission, which of course are local officials from the Delta, support isolated conveyance, at least in the current version or in its predecessors. Maybe there's a different version of isolated conveyance that they would support, but most of what I hear from them is that they support through Delta conveyance.
Yeah.
And so that's really the rationale behind. But the main thing is that we didn't feel we were in a position to develop it and promote it.
Okay.
We'll add our voice, hooray, if someone else can develop it. But.
Okay, thank you. That's clear. That clarifies it for me.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, amendments, changes? Seeing none, is there a motion to recommend the changes in the strategic plan as presented?
Can I say one thing, Mr. Chair, before you ask for the motion? This is generally not the way you'd like to have a discussion. It feels somewhat rushed. If this committee feels strongly that these need a lot of additional work, you can always recommend that, there's nothing requiring me to ask the commission to adopt this in May. We've been talking about it for a bit, but another 2 months won't make a big difference.
Okay.
I don't want to suggest that this is something you should feel you need to spend more time on if you don't feel you need to, but I guess I'm just respecting the fact that, we're pretty late in the meeting, and I just don't want people to feel that they're rushed. I'd like to bring it to the commission in May. If there's a strong feeling that this needs more work from the advisory committee, I can tell you that we put it out there for public comment and did not get a lot of public comment back, but that might say more about how we seek public comment than it does about the fact that silence is approval. So
my concern is if this goes, if the commission acts on this in May, then and if the committee wants to have a voice, I think expressing that voice is important, but there may be voices that argue in favor of more time. Sam?
Yeah, I'll make it quick. Eric, I apologize. I didn't start reading this until earlier today. I have a quick question.
Sure.
Removal of the invasive weeds section. Is that just, hey, this is impossible to deal with, it's just accepted, or is it, I'm just trying to figure out why.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sam. It's actually in there. It's just when we created our strategic plan in 2015, we had one very influential member of our commission who felt it needed to be embedded in every strategic theme. And so it's there. It's just the redundant mentions of it have been removed.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah, we're still very aligned and supportive of that as an issue. Of course, we have limited ability to do anything. That's what we rely upon Eddie for. But we want to be supportive of it in any way we can.
Thank you,
Barbara.
Yes, I'd just like to piggyback on some of Gil's comments earlier and how perhaps we could merge the surveys that were done and the responses to the 2030 vision. Some of the things that were said about taking care of the Delta better were kind of crossed out of here, in my opinion. So, but we're seeing in the surveys that people really want that. So maybe merging those a little bit and seeing how those surveys are represented in this 2030 vision might be helpful.
Barbara, you're referring to the DWR surveys that were discussed earlier?
Right, because people were talking about what's important to them. So I would think that the vision would encompass what's important to the people of the Delta, would be a thought, since it's been done already.
Yeah, we certainly want to be relevant to people in the Delta. That's really why we exist. We might need some help to make those crafted in a way that it provides us with good direction. That was some of the challenge we had with some of this language. It might have had a meaning to us at one point, but when we looked at it subsequent, we just really didn't understand what it meant. So to be useful in a strategic plan, something has to have enough detail attached to it that it's clear what we're talking about. And so that might be what applies to some of these proposed, in fact, it is definitely. The margin note is just that we weren't quite sure what was intended. If there's a way to be more specific about that, it would be worth considering.
So Barbara, do you have a specific comment, change, amendment that is consistent with your comment?
Well, I just think that the Delta Protection Commission is the place where the public has their opportunity to speak out. And since we haven't done a specific survey for this, there is a survey that could be applicable by the responses and the way it was formatted to incorporate the responses into the vision. And it's already bought, paid for, we've got it. And for instance, the beautification of the Delta, people brought up that the natural environment of the Delta is very, very important to them. And having it trashed or garbaged or whatever the case may be, I mean, wouldn't that also be important to the Delta Protection Commission as well?
That's a great example of something that is in the eye of the beholder. And so we would need more information and more detail. I mean, what does it mean to beautify the Delta? I think you probably would get a lot of different comments or a lot of different answers to that question. Mm-hmm. So that's a
concept level for sure.
That's a great example of it needs more detail to be meaningful. It's not meaningful in its current version.
But if it was something like, sorry to just interject, cleaning up the trash on the side or all the illegal dumping, that's very finite and definite. That might have some teeth to it, right? People can get around a specific idea.
Yeah, that would add more detail to it, and it's a broad region, so to be even if it's more specific than that you want to make sure that you don't have a lot of errant trash where you have recreation areas, for example. That would be the level of detail that would be helpful.
Barbara, if you wanted to put something together, around trash in specific areas, I'd certainly help you out with that.
Oh, thank you. Well, the other thing I'm thinking of is all of these dead trees. One, why are they all dying? And two, what can we do about that? The trees are a real problem out here.
Yeah, see, that would be an example where we'd need to know a lot more, because I mean, you would have people saying, you got to clean up the trees that are hanging over the roadways, because then they're dropping limbs and it's a public safety issue. So.
Thank you, Sam. We could talk, Sam. Thank you. Appreciate that.
So Barbara, I think what you're maybe saying, and Sam maybe too, is you're arguing or suggesting that a bit more time is needed to add a few more things. Is that where we're going?
If we have the time, why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to distill this down to an action item to try to, fulfill our responsibility to be clear to the commission what we're thinking. Douglas?
Yes. Okay. I'm not a voting member, but may I suggest that we can make a motion that the commission would study the possibility of adapting the environmental community justice survey into our plan, our strategic plan.
So that's a comment in favor of working on the strategic plan some more, right?
And one way of doing it.
For the reasons that you suggested, yes. So why don't we do this? I'd like to, this is a pretty important document, and my desire is that the advisory committee actually advise the commission on the document. So our choices are to ask the commission to defer a decision on this for another meeting, at least one more meeting, while we provide some more input to it. Another option that we have is to amend this document, but it's 7:05. Another option we have is to approve the document as is and recommend that the commission adopt the document. I think those are the three choices we have, but we have no motion on the table. Barbara, you've been a spokesperson here. Did you want to make a motion? So we have some action item to think about.
I make a motion that we incorporate the surveys into this vision and that we take the time to do it.
So that's a motion to ask the commission to defer the final action on the proposed changes to the strategic plan to modify it to include a survey and for other reasons. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. And we'll try to work the exact wording because Eric needs better wording. Is there a second? Is there a second to the motion?
Any seconds?
Just to be clear to everyone, it's this doesn't have to come before the commission on May 20th. If there's a desire to do some more work on this, maybe this can be the primary agenda item for the next advisory committee meeting. And it would be helpful for, to have some, specific proposals, maybe even batted about before. So, we're not, editing this during the meeting, but really kind of focusing in. I'm open to any of that. I need to go back and look at the environmental justice survey to understand what level of detail is in there and how that might be incorporated into something that would fit within a strategic objective. I'm sure that there are examples that would be great, and if I could get some help on that, even better. So, but to be clear, I don't, I think it would be sufficient to say, DPAC felt they wanted to do a little more work on this, if that's indeed what you all want to do. And just to you know, for Chair Pruner to report that to the commission on May 20th.
Well, let me ask for like a straw poll or something. So,
and actually, if that were the case, I would just suggest to our chair that we not even put this on the, or we just, you know, I give a report on it on May 20th, that we not put it on the agenda. We're in
the next meeting.
Yeah, we're in the process of finalizing the agenda, so it's not even on an agenda yet. So this is helpful to have this discussion tonight.
Okay, well, is it, let me quickly ask then, by maybe thumbs up or something, but some people aren't on screen, I know. Is it the sense of the group that we want to ask the commission or ask Eric to pass on our desire to work on this a little bit more without mentioning all the items that we talked about, trash cleanup, etc.? Are we all in favor of that? Cox says yes. I would say, what am I going to say? Yes. I'm going to say yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like it's all thumbs up that I'm seeing, but I mean, I don't see a few people, but more thumbs.
It sounds like we've got a quick.
Yep, more thumbs. Okay, that seems okay. Well, first thing I would ask is if you have any specific suggestions, just start sending them over to me. If you can make them specific, that'd be great. So if you want to track them into this document or indicate, you know, where they fit in, that would be helpful. And I'll certainly go back and look at that environmental justice survey and see if there's anything in there that, you know, from our end, we feel like, yeah, that should be adapted.
Eric,
we were not looking at that when we did this work. So it could be that there were things identified there that make entire sense to include.
Eric, could I ask if you could email that survey to us? That might jog some, you know, ideas or some thoughts, if you don't mind, so we could have that.
Yeah.
And could I just ask? I see we have our Lenora has been presumably faithfully listening and hanging in there. If we have her email, unless she objects, you know, maybe send it off to her as well, since she's, you know, hung in there. I see 2 chat items. Chris, okay. Chris has got to go. Sam's got to go. All right. Real quickly, are there any? Thank you, Eric. Are there any member announcements? I know I have one, and that's if you're in Clarksburg or around tomorrow, specifically around noon, the old schoolhouse, which has been moved yesterday some and today some more, slowly going up in the air. It should be raised to more or less to its final height, 10 feet or so off the ground up in the air. So right now it's about, I don't know, 5 feet or something. So it's a pretty dramatic thing to see a structure built in 1883, a 2-room schoolhouse, going up in the air. So if you're able to come by and witness that or drive by it and look at it, please do so.
I'll be there. I'll check it out.
All right, with that.
And Chairman Bruner, thank you for acknowledging me. It's been a very, very interesting meeting, and you guys accomplished a lot, discussed a lot, and of course, Eric is always a good facilitator.
Oh, thank you, Lenora.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much. All right, meeting's over. Thank you all so much for giving us 2 hours of your time.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you all.